Republican Congressman Doug Collins out of Georgia leading the recount effort for Team Trump with me now. And sir, good afternoon to you and thank you for your time. To be clear, by law, the vote starts tomorrow, November 13th, and you're required to have it done within a week. So that's another week, November 20th. I got a number of questions. I've read a lot of the interviews you've done. Let's see how many we can get through. What are you learning right now about mail-in voting in Georgia thus far?
Well, it depends on what you're talking about, mail-in voting. The only mail-in voting we really have in Georgia is absentee balloting, which you have to be a registered voter for. That's becoming a concern because we found examples, and we do have some affidavits of which people went to vote and then found out that there was an absentee ballot filed for them before they ever got there. So these are things that we're looking at. Georgia does not have a position in which we just send ballots to voters. They have to actually request them here in Georgia.
And on the absentee ballots, they have a signature, right? I mean, so you would know whether they're legitimate or not.
You should, but the problem is there's a consent decree that was issued by the Secretary of State, again, a while back, that actually weakened our signature verification. In fact, some places were not even following it as it should be. That's become a source of concern, and we're going to continue to track that down as well, because right now, once that ballot leaves that envelope, we cannot track it, because in Georgia, we don't have a voter ID number attached to a ballot.
Why is that?
Because General Assembly's never put one on there. That's something that has to be changed by law here in Georgia. We have to put that on.
Sorry, if there's no voter ID attached to the absentee ballot, how then do you know to whom it belongs?
That is you've hit the million-dollar question, Bill. That's the problem we're having right now. So if you have a voter, if you want to open yourself up to the possibility of fraud or ballot harvesting, then this is the problem that you have, because if we've weakened our signature requirements, if we're not, if in the next 60 days going into our Senate elections, they're not actually looking at those signatures and making sure that they are who they are and they're not voting illegally, then we don't have that verification, because once they're separated, they go into the pile of stacks and they're counted. We can't bring them back. That's the problem we're dealing with right now, and it's caused a lot of concern when there is questions about those ballots being cast properly.
Well, you know what history tells you, a couple hundred votes here or there maybe, but not thousands. Karl Rove writes this, Wall Street Journal: the election result will not be overturned. Recounts occasionally change margins in the hundreds, never in the tens of thousands. You'd agree on that, would you not?
Well, good for Karl Rove. I'm glad he wrote that article. And, look, we'll see what comes out. I mean, there's been a lot of things happening in this race that nobody expected. I mean, if you look at just what the polls were telling us, Florida would have went to Biden by 15 points. And in Georgia, we're seeing a very close election, 14,000 votes. We're seeing irregularities, but we're also having the first of its kind, and that is a hand recount that will actually take these ballots and also put to rest and to safe going forward that we're actually checking these ballots against the machine count. This is the first time it's happened in Georgia. So let's see what happens here.
But to be clear, we've never seen a race that's overturned with thousands and thousands of ballots, or even tens of thousands. That's the point that Rove is making.
Well, the part he's making is fine, but he's also said it never can happen either. And so if it does happen, then we'll see what goes on from there. But again, if there's a large discrepancy in these ballots, let's think about this for a second. Even if there's large discrepancies in this ballots, that tells you that we have a fundamentally issue with the ballots being processed through the voting systems, and we need to look at that. So there's a lot of issues going on here, Bill.
Another question here. This runoff in January, I mean, how important is that now?
It really determines the direction of this country and really the direction of the future generation. Are we going to continue in a system in which our market system is actually working, where our regulatory environment is good for our businesses, where our trade climate is actually in promoting trade for farmers in Georgia, for businesses in the country? Are we bringing back our manufacturing base? Or are we going to turn backward toward a more regulatory-based system? We're going to turn back to a more government-based system, especially when it comes to health care and other things. This is a very fundamental issue down here in Georgia, and you couldn't have any more candidates who are fundamentally different, Perdue and Loeffler and Warnock and Ossoff.
Would you then, I mean, given that absentee ballot situation you're trying to explain to us here, would the Republican Party then in Georgia encourage more voters to do it that way over the next 50 days?
I'll encourage every voter in Georgia to vote, and especially from my perspective, every Republican voter to vote. Look, the one thing about Georgia, there's been a lot of stories told about Georgia and voter suppression. Stacey Abrams has expressed some very large mistruths about Georgia. Actually, our voter participation has been increasing since 2014, and our minority participation has increased double digits. So, look, Georgia is voting and voting heavily, and we need to continue that, and I believe that people will, and if we need to use absentee votes to do that during the holidays, let's do that. If they want to go in person early, do that, or vote on Election Day, January 5th.
Okay, let's see where we are midweek, and we'll bring you back and go through it then. Thank you, sir. Doug Collins, overseeing the Trump team there in Georgia. Thank you for your time. Got some